Hey folks, welcome back to Bullets and Bourbon. We're going to jump back onto our 308 series where we are trying to load up our first 308s together. Thank you for coming back. Those of you who have been here before, those of you that haven't, welcome to the show. Hope you find something interesting. And if you do, if you find some value at the end of this, if you stick around, I'd love for you to reach down there, hit that subscribe button, hit a like button, give me a little thumbs up. Feel free to add comments all along. This has probably been the most difficult video I've ever made. Not that I've made that many, but this is by far the most difficult. Lots of reasons for that. I hope you will bear with me. And most of them have been technical problems. I have really struggled technically to get this right, and I really hope that we're getting there this time. I'm going to try to edit out any of the huge imperfections, but if you've seen my videos before, you know they're fraught with imperfections. But because of some of those technical errors, what has happened is I have essentially processed all of the brass necessary for my first 50. I was making videos that I thought were making videos, and then the sound was not there. So several other technical errors that I made during processing of the brass that is going to leave this show a little bit abbreviated in the instruction portion. Remember, this is reloading by a beginner for beginners. So if you're an advanced reloader, the only thing that I can ask is that you stick around and offer me any constructive criticisms that you might have about techniques that I'm using. So we're going to just let you know I've already got 50 plus pieces already ready to put powder in, and of course set the bullet. But I did go back and I made up 50 more, or I'm saying 5 more cases that have been trimmed using the Lyman Easy Trim set that we showcased last time. Primer pockets have been cleaned, case mouths all been brushed out. Everything's been measured. It's set to go. Now we're going to try to transition into the actual priming of the brass. I will reiterate, I used a new case lube, one that you can make up at home. It's very simple. You just need some liquid lanolin, 100% liquid lanolin. I got that off the internet. And I used 91% isopropyl alcohol mixed at a 10-to-1 ratio. All the experts say use 99% alcohol, but that wasn't available. And that other few percent, 8%, is nothing but water. So it might leave your cases a little speckled, but I don't think it's going to cause any performance issues. So we are going to jump right into this. Everybody knows I use the RCBS set, and I have already changed out the ram inside the press. There's a large press, or a large ram, and a small ram. When you change out that ram, you also have to change out this feeder. And in order to do that, you take your shell holder, put it on that insert, put it back in the press itself, align the ram, just shake it down in there. There's a little pivot mine is really tight with this large ram and the large insert. I've really had to struggle with it a little bit, but otherwise it's functioned really well, and I have had to do 50 cases just to get this far. Once you get the little pivot arm in here aligned properly so that it pushes the ram all the way up, then you just reinsert your guide rod, kind of hold it in place with your finger, And then it comes with a little knurl screw. And just put that knurl screw in there. And that's pretty much how it works. We could do, I guess, a more in-depth tutorial on that. There's not a lot to it. Switching over to our primer hopper. This little guy right here is just a clear tray on the top. And I am using CCI number 250s. These are actually Magnum rifle primers. They are not required, obviously, for 308, but it was what was available at Precision One when I was able to get components. Components were already becoming scarce at the time, and those were what were available, so I grabbed them up. The way I've learned to do this is pretty simple. Just place the bottom of the hopper face down on top of the primers, so you don't end up having to just dump them and then chase them all around your room. Flip them upside down. They fall harmlessly into the hopper. We'll get that put away. And then, because of the way they put these little grooves in the bottom, if you shake it a little bit, all the primers will magically right themselves. Makes it kind of convenient. I've got too many for the 5 cases that we're doing, but it will suffice for this purpose. And then just insert the hopper into that little loading port right there, and you're pretty much done. So one of the reasons that I've had so much trouble of late is I did not realize that I had so much of my 308 brass was military primed. I was checking them for damaged case mouths and things like that, but I was not looking at the primer pocket, and I did not notice that roughly 60% of all my brass had military primer. Military crimps, not military primers, military crimps. Well, that military crimp will not allow a primer to go back in the hole unless you use a swaging tool, or they make a couple of different devices to prepare that primer pocket properly. I don't have one. So I've had to set aside a lot of my federal brass, which was military crimped, and I've went back with a couple of other substitutes, and we'll get into that perhaps a little bit later. But because of the video problems that I had, all that brass is already primed. So I got 5 more of these. These are PMC. I got 5 more of them all ready to go just for this video, just to show you how I prime using the RCBS hand priming tool. So these are all 5 are ready to go. They are not military primed. And because I have now so much brass that has military crimps, 308, 223, and 9mm, I have decided that since components are temporarily unavailable while all this craziness is going on, I'm going to invest some of my money that I set aside monthly for things in the hobby. I'm going to use that money to buy myself a swaging tool so that I can prepare this brass that otherwise I would have to throw away. I see no reason to throw it away if it can prepare it properly with just by acquiring a tool. I'm a kind of a gear whore anyway, so I like a lot of tools and gadgets. So this will really just kind of play into that little fetish of mine. So we're going to throw this, it slides in the shell hole, or the shell holder. Make sure that there's a primer in the holder. Squeeze it pretty light pressure. Comes out very easily primed. This is exactly the same process that we used priming the 308s or the 9mm, and it goes really smooth. I have not had very much of a problem with this at all, with the exception of learning the hard way that military crimps exist on much of the 308 and brass that I had. That being said, with components being difficult to get, it's a little bit frustrating, but we're going to continue on with the show. One of the things that I am excited about is I have ordered myself a chronograph. It should ship tomorrow, and until we can get some small rifle primers so we can start in a 223 process, probably what we're going to do is we're going to start load development for the 308, some accuracy tests, just checking velocities, see how that stacks up against what is the prescribed norm for this type of ammunition. And speaking of things that have shipped and not shipped, I do want to throw out a little bit of a poll, if you will. I always appreciate comments. I try to answer every one of them. And this poll is about something that I'm sure is becoming near and dear to all of our hearts. I ordered, like I told you in my last video when me and the Beard reviewed the Walther PPS, I ordered a Fox inside the waistband holster for that gun. And I was so excited because that recommendation came from a good friend of mine, Keith, and I trust his opinions on a lot of things, and I was really excited to get that. Well, they emailed me subsequently and said, well, they couldn't ship my holster until the 14th because the governor of Michigan had them on lockdown. Well, here it is several days after that now, and they still have not contacted me again. Now, I understand, I'm sure that's largely due to the governor in Michigan deciding that she wants to be a tyrant. But my question to you is this. I'm going to call them tomorrow, one way or the other, but I'm really curious as to what people would think. Do I punish good people who are 2A supporters? I mean, these guys are in Michigan. They're working hard. I know they want to do the right thing. Do I punish them by pulling my order and saying, no, I need my money back and I'll go get somebody else's product that's in a state that does not allow that type of tyranny? Or do I reach out to them and say, you know, I'm going to stick with you despite the fact that I feel like you're being taken advantage of by an elected official? Now, I'm a big proponent of voting with your money. I don't support companies that don't believe the way I do. I don't shop at Starbucks whatsoever, as an example. So I'd be curious as to what other people think. Drop me a comment. Speaking of comments, I got a comment on the last video where we did the pistol review. I got a comment from a guy that was telling me that the Walther has real issues with, or that PPS has real issues with feeding hollow point ammunition. Now, I've watched a number of videos on that gun, and nobody's ever mentioned that to me. I have not ran any hollow points in that gun. Kind of on a little bit of an ammunition hoarding spree right now until this craziness goes away. I have never heard that from anybody else. It did not have a single issue with any of the factory ammo that I ran, and most of that was Winchester white box, which is about as cheap as you can buy. And I did run a number of my own hand loads, and I had no issues. So if anybody else got a comment on that, I'd love to hear from you. I apologize for this being a little bit of an abbreviated show. I did have a number of problems, including work this week. I'm sure everybody's having the same issues, and me complaining probably just about first world problems. But thank you guys for joining me again. I'm going to sign out now, but again, if you found any value in this, I'd love to get your subscription. I'd love to get a thumbs up, and please let me know what you think of the show and where we can go in the future. But I promise you this, if you'll stick around, we'll see you on the next one.